everybody. I'm going to make a multi-message today. I have a bunch of things I want to tell you, and I want to do a little mini journey in the midst of this as well. Oh man, I have so many things on my mind. I'm going to start by telling you an experience I had just a couple days ago. I woke up about 5 a.m. in the morning, and I was telling myself to get out of bed, okay? And I had this profound epiphany, because a lot of different things are happening at once, and I'll tell you all the different sides of the story. But the big epiphany, I'm going to just come out with it, is that if there is anything that we have to do every single day, we have to wake up. 5 a.m. in the morning, I have all of this sound projecting from the inside of me out. I'm not making a peep outside my own body. You wouldn't even know I was awake. I was awake and I was just so loud on the inside of myself with so many thoughts and feelings. I was talking to God. And one of the things that I discovered was that if there is anything that I have to do each and every day, I have to wake up. Now, to get out of bed might be a different story, but I thought about it. If I have to wake up, what other things do I have to do? And it became this odd discovery that there are so many things, if I identified them as something that I have to do, my life would be so much more enriching, because I would be holding myself accountable for doing the things that I really should be doing. If we took out the word should, I should brush my teeth, I should get in the shower, I should get dressed, I should, go to the grocery store, I should walk the dog. And then we were to say, I have to get a shower, I have to get dressed, I have to walk the dog, I have to brush my teeth. Why would we ever have to do these things? One thing we have to do is wake up. I feel that that's a multidimensional statement. Waking up it's a physical act, but it's a mental act, it's a living act. It's an act of being alive. It's like, I had this other thought about it, it's like, do you have to live? Yet you live. Do you understand what I mean by that? Do you have to live? And yet you live. So if you are alive, do you have to be alive? Why not? And what makes a life worth being alive in? You can imagine that it's not always fun to be alive. And if it's not fun to be alive, then you're not really embracing living at all. You're avoiding it, because to live is a painful thing. I tell you what, we had this fish in the tank and we nicknamed it the Hunchback of Notor fish. And we weren't quite aware that this fish had transformed into this freakish zombified form because it was always hiding. And when it came out, there was this mortified moment. And nobody could acknowledge, nobody could deny, we couldn't help but acknowledge that fish was messed up and that needed to get pulled from the tank and flushed down the toilet. But then there was this conflict. What if that would be so much stress on the Hunchback of Notor fish that maybe he needs to just finish his days in the tank, hiding until it's time to transition? Well, we couldn't find the fish because he was so good at hiding. Eventually he got caught in some of the living plants, and he'd moved on. But I tell you what, the Hunchback of Notor fish, his life was not great. He was attacked by other fish. He was morbidly transformed. He was sickly and skinny. His mouth didn't really move. You look at the animal kingdom and it's a scary place. The fish will eat the other fish alive. If you're the weakest fish, you will be bullied. And the human race eats the human race alive too sometimes. But one thing that you have to do every single day is you have to wake up. Literally. You have to wake up. And do you have to live? If you are alive, why not live? And how can you embrace living so that you don't have to feel like the Hunchback of Notor fish? I'm thinking about, should we have flushed it down the toilet? This poor stress of this fish. He ended his days. He came full circle with that experience and he transitioned naturally. Anyway, at 5 a.m., I was having these types of conversations with God, and I showed God a picture in my head. You guys should try this sometime. Don't actually talk to God. I mean, you can talk to God, but you should at least take a break in there and sometime just challenge yourself to create an image. And what is the image that some aspect of yourself decided to reveal? It's not that you thought the image through and made it perfect and put this there and that there and this is the image, but it just presented itself in this way. And I showed God this picture of myself and what I feel like I am right now. And I drew it for all of you. This is my human rendition. This is me taking it from a place that doesn't physically exist. It's not tangible in our physical world, okay? Because it's in my mind. If it's in my mind, then it doesn't, it's not tangible. But I moved it from my mind onto this piece of paper so you can witness it for yourself, okay? The one thing that we all have to do every single day is wake up. And now you can look at this picture. So this is my human rendition of what was perfectly in my head, and this is my human drawing. Okay, this is Abbey at 5 a.m. laying in bed. This is my mind going around and around and around and around and around with thoughts. And sometimes we crank these thoughts out. You ever wake up in the middle of the night and you're just furious? You're pissed off, like you're angry. You're thinking about memories of the past, and maybe all this sound is screaming from your head, okay? And you can't quiet it down. It's just hard to quiet down. It's almost like you have to let it run its course, and you hardly sleep because this is an unresolved concept here. This is stuck in a loop. You see that? That's what stuck in a loop is. Stuck in a loop. Oftentimes we get stuck in a loop because we are keeping everything inside. And to break this loop, we need to break the loop in our physical world. We break the loop in our physical world by wake up, but then participate. We move it from inside ourselves to outside of ourselves. The silent person sleeping in their bed is actually awake, screaming louder than anybody could imagine, but nobody out here will ever know that. Only in this cosmic universe will you ever be heard. And so if you want to be heard, you need to put your voice in your voice box, and you need to make it get out of your mouth, okay? And so when I drew this picture for God, I in my head, I said, this is me. And I said, I have so many things that I want to say and so many thoughts that I want to think about and so much I want to tell you, God. And I was feeling like so alive. And I was also, this is Abbey laying down in bed, okay? So imagine there's this other Abbey looking at this Abbey, trying to get this Abbey to move and come out of bed and go hang out in the living room and just do life stuff. Like, be alive now. It's like, wake up now, we own it. We leave the bed, we go do stuff. Like, we participate in this physical world. But I laid in bed. I ended up falling asleep like 2 hours later. And I had a very brief dream, although it felt like a very long dream. And I'll tell you about that. But I just want you to look at this picture for just a minute. And I want you to look at the boundaries of this form, okay? What are our boundaries, actually? I have this human body, and who I am on the inside has a totally different way of communicating than how I might express myself on the outside. And the reason why I love talking to God is because I can tell God anything, and God will always be open-minded to anything I have to say, even if it's not a nice thing. Even if I can admit that I had this thought or this feeling, or I actually thought about this, and that made me feel a little bit embarrassed about myself. I'll tell you one of these, for example. I talked to God about this one. So we've got Elden Ring on the PS5, and Joe and I are really having fun with this game, and I'm really into the whole story of this world, which begins with a great tree, and then the introduction of a new tree called the Erd tree, and then this other tree called the Halig tree, to replace the Erd tree, and these different factions of living people in this world, and how this Erd tree was based on this sort of divine order and the removal of this rune of death. And once the rune of death was removed from this Elden Ring, which was the whole balance, so what would be the Erd tree, once the death rune was removed, nobody could die, and the world became rotten. And all that remains, that is, I guess, some sense of goodness, you could say, but there's still so much confusion, still so much attempt to try to heal this world. And it seems hopeless. And there's these people called the Tarnished that are trying to bring balance back to the Elden Ring, which would have to do with this death rune. And I mean, we're not to the end of the game yet, but I've been reading some of the background story to try to make sense of it, because I've been really in awe of this story. And I caught myself literally saying this. This was back when we first started playing the game. I literally said this inside myself. I'll explain why I said it. The thing that I said inside myself was, I would rather live in that Elden Ring world than live in this world. And I was so shocked that I would say that, and I was embarrassed that I allowed that ripple to happen in my inner pond, okay, in my inner universe. The reason why I would never say that is because there's no way anybody would ever want to live in that Elden Ring world. There's nobody, the people aren't even hardly alive. They're all transformed into monsters, and they're lost, and it's just an awful place to live. But I gave myself some time. I gave myself an opportunity to discuss it with myself, with God even. I talked to even God about this. And I realized why I would prefer that Elden Ring world is because in that world, everything that was good and everything that was bad, there were far less illusions. There was far more visibility of what was wrong. It's like in our world, there's so much hidden. It's almost like every answer is right, but it doesn't have to necessarily equate to that. You can say that I like this, I don't like that, and be perfectly correct. Do you have to say I like this and I don't like that, but that doesn't mean that I can't like that, or I'm not willing to give it a try, and if I don't give it a try, then maybe I'm not open-minded and blah, blah, blah. Can't you just say yes and no? Can't this world be so direct? Does it have to always be everything is good? Everything is good just the way that it is? Could we have an opinion that would go against the grain? There's just so many layers upon layers upon layers upon layers upon layers of possible truths that could all be correct. I remember being a kid and ride my bike or mowing the yard, or times when I would just get to thinking, and I would look at all the perfect houses and all the perfect yards, and I would get to thinking that all these people who look put together and smile at one another aren't actually happy on the inside. So who are these people really? Are we really these nice houses and nice yards and nice faces, or are we something that we are not admitting? If we're not allowed to admit it. And I remember when I worked at a grocery store, part of my role is to be helpful, you know? I did this thing called courtesy. And I bagged the groceries, put them in the cart, and I drove the cart out to the car, and I put the groceries in the car, and I thanked the people for coming to the store, wished them a wonderful day, and I did that for hours. I mean, that was my task, to do courtesy. So a 4-hour shift or 8-hour shift, that's what I did. That was my job. And I wondered if I was a robot. I wondered if I was a human. And what was the difference between being a human and being a robotic human? Because a human being must be somebody who is appropriate, who expresses themselves appropriately, who smiles on the outside, even if on the inside they are frowning. And it is appropriate time to expose the joy that you have to be, and never really reveal the true person or the true nature of yourself inside. And that one was a real conundrum for me for a lot of years, because I wondered, how can we be truly honest people in this world? You know? And is it possible to be a truly honest person? Maybe it's appropriate to continue to represent something polished and something clean and something of leadership, something of intelligence, something of integrity, something of joy, and to uphold that day in and day out, whether anybody really knew who you actually were on the inside, but saw you for who you chose to express yourself to be. Then maybe that is an admirable life. I think it's one of those types of questions that you could think about, and maybe any answer would be good, but I'd much rather people value me for being my strongest representation of myself than showing myself as my broken and confused and lost and crying version. Because I don't know that that is all that I am, but what I'm working through. But Hunchback of Notor fish was definitely Hunchback of Notor fish. I mean, sometimes that fish world just is, it wears its heart on its sleeve, you know? That Elden Ring world wears its heart on its sleeve. There's nothing hidden there, but yet our world is full of secrets. I'm so tired of secrets, you know? I want to live in a world where we can be a little bit more open and honest in an intelligent way that has some integrity at all levels of a society. So, just some of my thoughts, but at 5 a.m. I was going round and round in my head, and I was expressing all of this to God, and I was this me, and I was inside. I was in these boundaries of my body, and nothing out here even had a clue what was going on in here. I think this is every day for a human being. I think this is true, that every day for a human being will be like this. And sometimes we will move the sound outside, and sometimes we'll keep it on the inside. But for the most part, this is what it's like to be a human being. I think there's an important message, though, about breaking the cycle and moving your voice and making it more material. You know, like I'm making this material. I'm actually making a video about my experience, which is bringing material to a real human experience, real human thinking and reflecting that might actually make a difference in your own life. I would love to come up with an invention that could actually, you know, be a physical solution to, I don't know, making clean drinking water, or I don't know. It's just I like inventions that have a tangible gift that we can participate, we can touch it, we can experience it, we can talk about it. And my gift is to share my sensory experience, my philosophical or my ideas, or my presence, and my relationship with being human. And maybe it would empower any human being to just hear what my experience is. So here I'm now creating the physical drawing, I'm creating the video, and I'm moving something from inside here into this physical world. I'm actually manifesting something. Do you see how cool this is? Do you understand that I am doing a physical manifestation right now, and you're part of it, and you're witnessing my physical manifestation? And one thing that you're always going to have to do every day is wake up. But are you going to live? Even if you are alive? I don't see why not. I don't see why it's not a good idea to say, I have to live today and I want to live. Why not say, I want to live today? I want to be this courtesy person, and I want to bring happiness into people's lives. And if they never know what I am on the inside, maybe they're not meant to. Maybe I'm supposed to be a gift of a smile and support. And that is how I'm meant to reach them in this physical world. And what I'm working through inside myself, God and I can talk about it, and then I can share it with all of you here on YouTube. And I'm telling you, that was a long time ago. How many years ago was it that I was 14? Man, I gotta do a lot of math here. Anyway, so I want to tell you about this dream that I had, because after I made this picture in my head, I didn't say anything once I made this. And this was right around probably 6:45, because I looked at my phone at 6:50, and just before I looked at my phone, I was doing this with God. I wasn't saying anything anymore. I showed God this picture. This is what I felt like. And then I checked my phone, and then I noticed I fell asleep. And I was so alive. I was so awake at 5 a.m. I was awake at 6 a.m. I was awake. I was awake. I was awake. I was awake. Even at 6:50, I was awake. And I was showing God this picture, and I was wondering when I was going to have to get up, okay? And I fell asleep. Because when I showed God that picture, I got so peaceful. I guess you could say I quieted the sound. And then I got peaceful, and I fell asleep. And in my dream, I had this epiphany about what created true freedom. And I realized that I was free. I felt free. I felt so incredibly free in this dream. And it's like I said, can't something be yes and something be no? Couldn't I say I like chocolate ice cream, I don't like strawberry ice cream, and can't that be my thing, that I could own that? Or do I have to pretend to like strawberry ice cream in order to make everybody who likes strawberry ice cream happy? Like, can't I just like one thing and not like another thing? And this world gets so confusing, but in Elden Ring, it was just so straightforward. I'm a tarnished, I'm a hero. I know what my calling is. I need to fulfill my destiny. I need to upgrade my axe. In this very interesting story that I'm not actually living in, but I'm witnessing it from the outside, and I'm reading the history of this story, and I'm intrigued by it. But I could handle this, okay? But being human isn't always easy to handle, and it's confusing. I'm in this human story. I'm not looking at it from the outside. I'm actually in the story. And I don't know what comes next, you know? But in that dream, I was free. In that dream, I was free, and I'll tell you what happened in it. I was in a room. There was about 30 people. I recognized some of these people from my life, okay? And one of them in particular, the most important thing to this one person was that everybody liked them. Is that they were seen, and they were acknowledged, and they were the loudest voice. And it almost seemed like the way that they laughed, and the way that they talked, and the way that they looked at people was all this fabricated self-expression. It wasn't really who they were. Because if they weren't liked, they didn't know how to interpret themselves. They didn't know how to exist without approval from others. They needed all of these people in order to be given the ability to feel like they mattered. That person and all the people that were here, I was allowed to see through them in the dream, and I could see that these people and that person, that they were imprisoned because they needed something. They couldn't, the key was, and I'll explain this, that to be free, that you are free when you love yourself. When you embrace yourself as you are, wholeheartedly love yourself, all the decisions you ever made, all your shame, all your guilt, all your avoidances, all your lies, all your bad ideas, all your good ideas, all the things you said inside yourself that you never said outside yourself, but all the times that you followed through and kept smiling even when you were screaming, crying, and nobody was ever going to hear that. When you held yourself together and you wanted to fall apart because you had to be strong for other people. When you can love yourself for every dynamic that is you, you are free. And in this dream, I was somebody, a part of these 30 people that we were in this gathering, and this one person was the center of attention, and everybody seemed to adore this person. And I just wanted to strike up a conversation. In the dream, I started talking loud, and I laughed because I had this really great story. And all of these people's eyes started to look at me and acknowledge me. And I was welcoming into the conversation because I really wanted to share it. And suddenly there was this like awkward moment. It was like one of those moments where you do the clap and nobody joins in. And slowly your clap just stops. It was one of those moments because I was like really loud and like, I got this story and blah, blah, blah. I'm telling the story. And then it was like, my voice is like getting softer and softer, and people are silently eyeballing each other and looking back for the slowing, turning their head away from me, acting like they didn't like want to acknowledge my existence. And I felt in the dream ashamed and stupid and embarrassed. And I lingered in feeling that way only briefly before I had this click. And in this click, I just started laughing, and I said it inside myself. I said, I'm free. I'm free. I love myself because I tried to make people laugh, and I tried to share a fun story, and it wasn't about people liking me or not liking me. It was just about sharing myself, and I tried, and they didn't seem to accept that, and I don't mind that, and I just love me for being me. And I in the dream, it's like, this is yes, this is no. In the dream, the no was, they were all in a prison. They were all each a bird in a cage, and they couldn't see it about themselves because I had learned the secret of how to love myself, and they hadn't learned the secret of how to love themselves yet. And once I said that, I found myself in an attic, and I jumped on top of a table. I started laughing and holding myself, of like hugging myself literally. And I kept saying, I'm free, I'm free, I'm free. And then the alarm clock went off and I woke up, and I'm telling you, I was so mesmerized by this dream. It was hard to get out of bed because it was so altering. It was like my whole being really understood the sound of what I was acknowledging about I was free. So, 5 a.m., doing this, realizing these important things, like if there's one thing that we'll always have to do, it's to wake up every single day. Why not choose to have to do other things and enrich our lives? To be this is to be human. You know, all the genuine ways that being human is. And that is a human story, you know? That's an extraordinary human story. Telling these things to God, just allowing myself to develop an image in my head, share that image with God, not because I thought the image through, but just it drew itself. And then it just was that. I just got mesmerized looking at this image in my own mind, and everything got peaceful, and I had this extraordinary dream at 6:50, and then 7:05, it was like I was in this incredible state of I am free. And now here I'm making this message. I'm manifesting. I'm moving something from an inner universe to our physical world, and I'm manifesting. You're part of my manifestation. This is cool. Do you see how we're bringing conscious clarity to something that we might not ever acknowledge was consciously true? Like, it's true, but we wouldn't have like held on to it and identified it as something worth acknowledging. And all of this stuff I'm telling you right now is all stuff that is so worth acknowledging. I hope you guys found this message interesting. I would love your support in growing my YouTube channel, so don't be shy. If you love the content, share it. If you love the content, subscribe, like, hit the notification button. If you happen to be a subscriber and for some reason YouTube isn't sending notifications when I post a video, try to click the notification bell, like click it off and then click it back on, and maybe that would reset things. But I would love to be a part of your life, and I enjoy sharing, and I'm excited to see what 2023 has to offer. I feel like we're all coming out of a new kind of shell, and we're going to be more free and brighter than ever before, to be more our voice and more present in this world and more able to embrace one another, no matter what the world might look like or might be advertised to be like. Maybe it appears like an Elden Ring story is on its way in our human world, but we're alive with so much love, and love is authenticity. Love is the reason why I'm making this message and just being a regular old human being talking to you guys. This is my talent. Listening to vibrations, talking to God, telling you guys my experiences, seeing what's beyond. I realized that I was going to do a little journey, tell you all of this stuff and do a little journey, but it feels to me like the journey was just in the conversation. So thank you for sticking around. If any of you are interested in exploring a psychic session with me, I would love to do distance energy healing, share my psychic wisdom with you in your life in an individual session. You can book those on my website at abbeynormalswisdomquest.com. All right, have an awesome day, everybody.